Today we have not changed the format of our lounge in any way. Please join us at our US East Coast DoA6 Core Fighters lobby. You can, of course, join us if you are anywhere around the rim of the Atlantic Ocean. As long as your connection holds up to it, we don't care. I believe I did set the connection to like 3 bars. You might have a little trouble getting in at first if you're unstable, but you should find something. Note that this is a loser stays on lobby. It is set to 3 consecutive losses, so even if you do not... Basically you can't come in and just lose forever, you will get booted eventually and someone else will get their turn. And similarly, if you don't feel as if you're learning anything in the current match you're having, you can just pass and not go into the next one. Take a while, catch your breath or whatever. But this is mostly practice. And today in particular, it is even more so than usual. While looking at other games, some of our players with less experience with fighting games, the mindsets that go with them as a whole, and so on, have been trying to figure out how one decides what to do when you feel helpless or don't otherwise know what to do. It's easy to get stuck, to end up feeling somewhat paralyzed and unable to take any actions. So we are going to be discussing some of that later on. For that reason, I am playing today. And as for now, you actually see Omni Rabbit having started off with an unfamiliar character of his own. Omni Rabbit knows how to fight Kasumi. He knows a lot of Kasumi's moves, but the one thing is he doesn't necessarily know which of those moves come from which inputs. And this is really important in DoA because at least in other games, if you press punch, most games don't have so many command normals for their characters that forward punch, back punch, down punch, up punch, up, forward punch, these are all different inputs. But DoA has a tendency for this to be true, usually up to 5 or 6 different moves happen from one button because most of how buttons are changed in their effects has to do with where you pointed your D-pad or stick at the time you pressed it. This leaves you with a lot to learn and a big problem when it comes to being in stressful situations because you have to notice the difference between what happened when you pressed backhand punch and what happened when you pressed down backhand punch. One of the worst things for almost any of us is the difference between down and down forward, as it comes up a lot in this game but very seldom in other games. Note that if you join us that our health bars are set to large. I don't know if I've mentioned that yet. Max health is set to large to give a little bit more room for making mistakes. And that's partially because if you do join us, you don't have to hold back as much. If you know a mix-up that works, then go ahead and use it. The 3rd time's the charm. Usually there's no combo that most people do in this game that involves deleting you within 2 interactions, unless usually the health is set to normal or lower. We are on Kazuki Dynasty's account, but I am playing today and salty about the fact that we are 1 point off from unlocking the Nico costume I want to use. But that aside, I have no idea whether or not it auto-selects the person I'm on, but it should because I was picking a costume. Despite considering this character either main or secondary, I'm not even sure yet, and part of the fact that I'm not sure comes from the fact that I have not actually spent a lot of time exploring Nico's options fully, or rather, I didn't bother to remember any of them. I poked at the character, thought, this character seems like me, personality, people tend to make characters, like I said, that now we have this archetypal thing going on. People don't go too far out of it most of the time. Nico is 100% my archetype, and thankfully also 100% my type of character in terms of what she does. But I don't remember any of it. So, the good thing about characters that suit you particularly well is, generally, if a character suits you well enough, most of the time you just hit the button that seems right in the situation, especially in this game, and things work. The way and reason to which this works out matters game to game, but yeah, overall, I can't tell you what I'm doing, which is important. I cannot tell you what I'm pressing right now. I know that if I press forward and punch, she will probably do an elbow because that's what I would want. And if I press up and throw, for example, something like that will happen. My characters are usually good at that. So you can mash, you absolutely can mash, but what most of us do is that we mash without full understanding of what we want to feel. And in this game, the direction you press is the way you deal with that. I saw my opponent at a certain distance, I felt they were going to do a move. I figured the most sensible thing to punish this move with is up forward kick. It turned out I'm wrong. Up forward kick doesn't do what I expected it to. It was probably up and kick or forward and kick that I pressed. Or maybe I pressed forward and kick the next time. Up and kick is not what I want. Up forward kick is... I don't even know yet. Might not be there. No, I did something, but I don't know what it was now. But because the character suits me well enough, I don't have to think about any of that. I know she's going to have a throw range that I let. This only verified my hypothesis. I mean, if you've never heard me say this, you don't know me well enough. I might not use those exact words though. It is a good part of the reason why we like to play this game. For the most part, characters flow naturally to someone. Even the characters that we thought, there's no way this character can be natural to anyone, specifically Honoka and Marie Rose, we've recently learned, oh no, those characters do work. I don't want to play Marie Rose, but sadly Marie Rose is now, I'm learning, a character that I could probably play. As for why I don't want to play her, let's not get into that, it's not really specific. But yeah, we thought, Honoka, why would you make a character that does this? It's like the equivalent of Seth. But Honoka's natural flows, using other people's moves, suit Omni Rabbit fairly well. And to reference a completely side conversation to Kanzuk Dynasty, who is here with me, it wasn't that specifically it was a cat thing. It's that you have accessories you can change around. So she has the bunny ears in that costume. She has the bunny ears to go with that costume. Similarly, depending on how you play and what buttons you feel are the correct ones to press in particular spaces, either because you're used to it from other games, or just something in the back of your mind tells you, I hit this button to solve this problem physically, you may need to change your button config. Most of us have used the same config from, I think the original source of the config is actually Mortal Kombat 2. So, if you asked us to explain it to you relative to any fighting game that is currently on the market, I don't think even Injustice actually works like that anymore. Let's just say that it's unlikely anyone's going to share the button config that we use for most games. But we do have two team members that don't use the same button config, that for various reasons related to their characters, and in a lot of cases this does matter. Your combos, depending on what type of character you play, your character often needs to hit certain things in a certain sequence, and it's just natural or makes you feel more confident to hit let's say square, then triangle, then circle, or square, then X, then circle, similar things. It seems a little bit much to think about, especially when you had no options for this in the arcade, but if you're a gamer who got into fighting games in the home console era, you have had the ability to do this for a long time. And therefore, unless you played for the defaults in a game, it mattered a lot. Since games use different defaults, it's actually slightly better to work out your own, but many people start with Street Fighter and just use the Street Fighter 1. How they manage that on pads, I don't know to this day, because I think it puts your light buttons... No, it doesn't, actually. It puts your heavy buttons on the shoulder buttons. There's a good reason for this, design-wise, in most games. They normally have the longest animations, they normally have the most obvious situations in which you need to press them. They normally don't actually do all that well in combos, so you don't need to press them at those timings. And depending on your dexterity, therefore it's a little bit easier. But everyone uses different things and has good reasons to use different things. So an overlap with that is the fact that we are probably going to see the same sort of thing from DeWolf today. He is now playing a character that he knows how to play, but has finally remembered or considered, oh wait, the buttons, they need to be different. I don't play this game on this button config. I need to make something that is the equivalent of a Street Fighter config in some way. This person was extremely poor connection, and it looks like they might have managed to get in with it, so let's see what happens. I guess it should work out one way or the other. No, that is not looking like it's going to go well, but so be it. Fortunately, if anyone's most equipped for playing in weird lag, it's probably me, because I spend a lot of time just feeling comfortable. But today that might not be true, and that is because of what our goal is. It does, however, help somewhat with the same type of content. I now have to, without remembering what the character does, take advantage of the fact that this game has relatively obvious options. If you play a character that is your style, most likely a lot of the buttons you hit are going to be correct. This doesn't even seem to rely on being familiar with 3D fighting games. 3D fighting game familiarity in this game, and in obviously other 3D games, seems to focus more so on defense than anything else. And this is definitely going to be a lag nightmare. But this still gives us some time to think about something. So I'm used to characters who have a down back kick that does a sweep motion. And I think that Nico isn't that character. I feel as if Nico's down back kick is a kind of poking, annoying thing, similar to what, like, Colleen does. Let's see, this should be down roll, I guess. Which means that if I want that attack, I probably need down back H plus K if I want anything. So let's see what that does. But this also goes a little further in that I know my opponent is playing at a specific range, I know the way that they want to approach. And my thought is, let me hit this button. And now we get to literally see it happen in slow motion. No, she doesn't do exactly what I expect. One down. No, that was... I think I stood up. Because I think that goes over your head normally. So it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to do holds even on slow motion-y moves, which is good and makes sense because you really shouldn't be allowed to do that. Even in lag, you should just have to know what's coming otherwise. For example, in this recovery frame, I should be able to do this because I made the decision at the point of the frame where I would have had to make it normally. I can't wait until I can see the startup frames of this thing and be fine now. So in a way this is helpful, like I expect my opponent to come with a mid now, but I delayed a while to make sure it was a mid before I did that. The game went into slow motion, but for fairness sake, I definitely shouldn't have been able to do the thing I did. I wanted to hit that at around the frame where you saw Kasumi's elbow started to move forward. You generally can't do that for fast moves in the game. You generally, if your opponent is going to do a fast move in the game, you had to expect it based on your spacing or something. So here now, I'm going to get up and I'm going to expect the mid kick, but I'm also going to have to hit the button forward now for it before anything else happens. I don't even know if this is going to go through, but I'm not expecting the mid kick anymore. Oh no, there it is. Never mind. Apparently I do know what I'm doing still. And I don't know how to follow this up, but this is such a me thing to do that I don't think I care. So I'm going to backdash now. Is it going to work? Not really. I should have backdashed and blocked longer because my opponent is the sort to move in that situation. Oh, the lag went away for a minute. Crunch! Now I should throw. Now I'm not sure if this throw will work, but I'm going to throw. I'm going to hit the button and blah blah. Technically I moved forward backward too much because when you're in lag like this, it's easy to get used to the feeling that you have to do something and hold the button longer. So right now, for example, I need to throw at about... I don't even know the timing, because they should be moving toward me now. And they should go for some break attack. But there we go. There's no way I'm going to throw that. Which is good, because that was technically the correct option. Had they done anything else, I might have landed my throw. So, even this ridiculous match in which everything is just basically slow motion, I can still manage to explain a little bit of it. So, I want to so make some sort of learning with Nico joke here, but I can't think of one. Either way, we're not going to have to see this again because it is loser stays on. If the match continues, I'm going to lose it because my opponent is not particularly interested in letting that not happen. So I should do up kick here. And sidestep is what happened because I was pressing something else. Oh, I got my up kick anyway. Good. And now I should mash punch a little bit, and then press forward and probably P plus K. I have no idea how this is going to read my inputs now, because I have been obviously tapping beforehand. Playing in this level of slow motion lag is very difficult because we're used to mashing, and we're used to, oh, things are happening on the screen that look like I need to press more buttons, but now I'm not pressing them. So forward punch, here we go, forward P plus K. I'm going to just press it once and see what happens. And I did lose the input, so it's going to be a little rough if I wanted to do that. Still, it's not entirely bad. Into the water! Wait, this is a thing? Why is this a thing? Do we fight underwater now? Because that would be nice. Oh. No, because, you know, why not? Aw, why do you make it look like I lost all my grace halfway through that? Fine. So based on my current opponent, I once again think I want to up and kick. So I'm going to do it right here, maybe press it again, just in case. Are my inputs going to get eaten? I've pressed it definitely only once, and yes, it looks unfortunate that they did. So I'm going to mid-block. and forward hold. Because I know this move, but it wouldn't have worked. And throw this. Let's try throwing that. Because my opponent should keep on attacking, but no, that turned into a bad dash. But as you've seen earlier on in the match, you can absolutely make those decisions on that time scale if you are confident enough in them as a whole. Let's multi-tap down a little bit. Nope. And mash to recover. Mid-hold. Let's attempt mid-hold. Oh, I got block. That's interesting. I got the mid-hold after. Alright then. So obviously this was not the best experience, but you still managed to see something about it. I don't remember this character's buttons. That's what I'm telling you. I now know some of them, and I literally got to learn some of them in slow motion. But it was simply that in this game, up and kick or up forward and kick tends to strike upward. For some people it's kind of an aerial spin kick hop. But for a character like mine, it probably should be an upward kick almost all of the time. I wouldn't play a character for whom it was not an upward kick. Therefore, get used to thinking about things in that way, even if you're playing a new character, or even if, and this is the part that's important, even if the situation you're in, none of the buttons you normally press solve the problem, and you don't remember for certain whether or not the button you want to press does. Because understanding the properties of a move is sort of like a hidden thing in your head. I press up and kick not because I know exactly what up and kick is, but because I expect the properties of the up and kick to be helpful. What I can therefore also say is, if I knew exactly what up and kick did, but I didn't feel confident that the properties of the move were going to solve my problem, I should accept it anyway, because that's what it's there for. Ooh, I have a headset. I'll take a headset. This sort of thing allows you to decide what buttons you want to focus on in a match, purely based on either your understanding of your opponent or your understanding of their character. For example, Honoka to me is a character against whom I don't really want to hold in neutral. I don't really want to hold in combos. I feel like I want to get out of her way going up, and I don't mean sidestep. I want to hop in some way to get away from things Honoka wants to do. But I'm not sure if I have a hop. I'm going to press up, back, and punch though, because I feel as if up, back, and punch is supposed to be a hop. I feel as if also is supposed to be kind of fast. That's not a hop, but maybe it'll do something I want similarly, because this character might have no hops. I know if it were Kasumi she would hop, but I'm pretty sure that I want this button for the matchup. That's all I'm thinking now. This is a back punch, yeah, this is what I want for the matchup. Somehow this is the correct answer. And I literally can tell you now with certainty I have never seen this move before, because I've never had a matchup or a thought where I was like, this is the button Nico needs to hit. But it's the button Nico needs to hit, so understanding the ability to do that, especially in other games where your buttons are less likely to help you. And that actually followed on, because now I know I can do that and Honoka will not want to enter a certain space or try to whiff in front of me too much, because it reaches far enough that I'll get something. Therefore, the rest of the battle, the rest of what I'm thinking of doing is the forward kick, because I expect now that the forward kick, which is usually a running hop kick thing, is moving me slightly more into the space than my opponent is expecting. And if they wanted to approach me at any time, but not hit buttons, then the problem is solved. I don't even know what that was, but you can immediately see the effect I'm talking about. I felt an attack was going to come that I needed to beat by doing some up-forward attack. Does she have up-forward kick? I don't know. I literally don't know what I pressed. But I know that the properties of things that I should have been able to get from whatever it was I input are likely to be right. Also, best win pose. Don't let yourself get caught up in any game in trying to figure out how to solve the problems, the new problems you're having, with the old tools you've always used. Worry about doing that sort of thing when you run out of tools. When you have nothing else to try with because you've tried everything. But that specific ability to go, I understand the movement of my opponent or their character's threat range, then translate that to my character needs this thing, and then translate that to this is how I would do it physically, has a bunch of jumps that you're making in there. I'm not telling anyone else to make those jumps. I'm telling them, make sure that when you are mashing, when you are trying to solve your situations, especially in neutral, do a different thing every time, rather than just going, I need to hit the button faster than my opponent so that they mess up. It is this ability that allows me to act as analyst and tell the team, use this exact button in this situation, even though it doesn't seem like it will make sense. Because I just, for whatever reason, have the ability to see these. Nico would claim that she can just see all of the data at once. She can process all of the data while in combat. And that's just me offloading my stuff onto Nico so I sound less weird when I say it, because this is what I do all of the time.
Are you here to take me out?
For example, Bayman is the sort of character where I would expect his forward and kick to be kind of a step kick. He reminds me of Guile, obviously. But I don't know if it's a step kick. If it's not a step kick, I wouldn't know why it wouldn't be a step kick, though. I absolutely expect that Vayman's forward kick is meant to whiff punish things and hit at max range. So you wait till your opponent gets to the max range of what you think this kick should be. You don't even have to think about anything. It's just, okay, I think you are outside of the range of a normal standing kick. A forwarding kick has to be a step kick, right? So you must be able to get hit by this because you're slightly farther away. I'm just going to hit forward and kick because I expect this to work. And then you've realized that his forward and kick is something completely weird and different. The point at that point is probably more so, oh wait, maybe this isn't my character, than anything else. If you came to that. Honoka has a lot more complexity in that, at least so you'd think, because she has everyone else's moves. But that does not mean that she didn't actually end up with a fighting style. In these sorts of games, characters blend together. If you've played Absolver or seen on our channel us playing Absolver, you get to put them together yourself, and it still works out pretty well. You can absolutely build an entire fighting style, and it's not just, oh well, here are these moves. The flow between the moves, the spaces you get to stand at, the things you get to plan and force your opponent to do, are all critically important to your build, to your style. These are pre-built, but just because Honoka is made up of other characters' moves, specifically, does not mean that you're going to have any issues with the way she fights. It might just be that this particular combination is good, or has a very clear aim in its outcome, which would make the most sense, really. Another way to think about that is this. There are at least 18 characters in this game, probably more. Honoka had 18 options for what her down back kick is. Therefore, and someone on the staff decided Honoka's down back kick, for the purposes of her fighting style, should have been taken from this character. It does not matter that she doesn't have her own original down back kick. All they would have to have is some idea of how Honoka should fight, and then just, for every slot, pick from some other character to achieve the same goal. But that does not mean that Honeka's fighting style is just some mishmash that you can't figure out. In fact, Honeka's fighting style, as far as the rest of us are concerned, is very clear. She has a weakness at a very specific range, and otherwise she is always able to push you backward when she is at her max range.
Really hurt that much?
Because she's not interested in hitting you and then continuing or faking you out per se. So she will have a lot of moves at her max ranges that are just meant to push you even further. And this usually gives her either the ability to move back or forward. She can dash in toward you, or she can circle around you to use a different move. On defense, she has 2 moves that knock you away, and other moves that move her hurt box in such a way that she's likely to get to hit you. Other than that, she mostly has normal punches and kicks, but the ones that were chosen are the ones that flow into those 2 options. And therefore she ends up with one limitation. Specifically, she has one move in each direction that does combo into things. That is the move you do when you need to make the read. It's usually quite strong. And if you think about characters that Omni Rabbit plays in general, all of these things line up. So it's more so our misunderstanding of Honoko as a character before this that made her seem less suited. Because Omni Rabbit would play Tina, but Tina's goal at mid-range is to pummel her way toward you and usually put you under pressure or hold you from there. And that's not really what Omni Rabbit prefers to do. He likes to be in close and then push you out and then block and wait for you to make a mistake, move a hurt box and do the same thing. My idea for how this match works is as you've seen here. I'm going to wait for my opponent to make some movement mistake, if possible, and then grab them. This isn't really something that beats Bayman specifically. It's more so something that beats DeWolf's style of play most of the time, because he spends a lot of time well predicting other people. And he'll adapt to this. He'll adapt to this by getting into the same situations, the scrambly ones, and hitting buttons instead. See? But now I get to learn Nico pressure strings, because if he's going to hit buttons, then where I am matters. And I just lengthen the pressure string until he decides, okay, I should probably block some of this. And then I can throw. This is enough of an interaction in itself. She has good staggered moves being, okay, I can do my move slightly slower, and you won't know how plus you are, so, or how plus I am, so you don't really get to disrespect me just yet. I get to hit buttons slower than other characters, which is a thing I like doing. I don't have to finish most of my combos, I can just do stuff like that. And with some certainty that, due to the properties of my moves, you're not going to win out by just hitting your own. Come on, there we go. Now, I should solve this problem by using more mids. And I'm going to assume that her forward plus punches a mid, and therefore use that. I have been training with bots in their development, and that has led me to learn to throw attack in this game. So I can say with some certainty, yes, that actually worked. That we have bots, because I don't throw attack in any game, I hate it. I like to get out of the way, but I know that this game does not give me the option to quickly get out of the way of a throw. So I have to throw attack. Therefore I train it a little harder in this game than most other games. You can only devote so much of your time to any given thing in games as a generality, and I definitely don't have the amount of time to play and practice heavily on most games I play. Meaning, In this game, I know what will make me lose, so I practiced that. And it just happened to be that we were doing bots that resolved that issue. This week is the week we'll actually have Helena bot up on the site with certainty. We may, depending on what experience I get from this lounge, have a Nico bot in development, because I do have to test against as many people as possible. Okay, how well does this staggered attack into throw thing actually work? And what would you even want to know about how to beat Nico or learn about fighting Nico? Because mostly when you are dealing with the characters that I play, the thing you need to learn when fighting them is offense. Because they do this whole staggery annoying thing, but they don't tend to have really, really great defense. If you become predictable, they'll stop you. If you can keep your pressure going well, they're usually a little limited in terms of how well they can stop you. So we'll see. Since this game has so many different ways of functioning, understanding how to teach someone offense is unlikely, so we're most likely going to split it one way or the other. I have two characters. Kasumi was technically a little bit of offense. Marie Rose, we have a bot, but not specifically the goals of the bot, and I know that hers is partially offense, so I think I'm going to work toward making Nico's the other side of that. We'll push through the Marie Rose bot data, see what happens, but unfortunately, obviously, the character is currently not free, and yeah, we're cheap, we don't feel like paying for her right now. However, I do have data in the background as to why she works and what she does, so it's going to be about the same. So today we see our Cosmic Wolf, our Space Wolf, having basically the same interaction. Liking this character for sure, not knowing necessarily what to hit, but he faces a different problem than the rest of us because of mental state and shifts. By his own admission, he is a person who tends to do a move that works until it stops working. We've mentioned this multiple times. This works fairly well in this game, but because the opponent's ability to stop the move is so blatantly stronger, as in you expect this move, then you just get to stop it, period. There's no question about whether or not you get to stop it. The only question would be, do you understand what height the move is at? If you are fully expecting X will happen, you press the hold and you hold. There's no other thing that happens. Obviously there is the option for your opponent to not do that thing, but we're talking specifically about a player who is far more likely to do the same combo until you hold it. Now, this means that for learning to play Rig, what you should expect, and should absolutely, if this is the sort of player you are, don't be too stressed about this or ashamed of this, it's more likely that the wolf is going to get worse at this as he goes. Because the more options get learnt, the more likely it will be that he will start to over-rely on those options. Movement is a good part of Rig's game, so it won't be completely, terrible. But Bayman is good at stopping the sort of thing Rig does, because Rig wants to fight from a range where, even though his options are not limited in themselves, a lot of them have more to do with, am I going to attack or not, than, hey, which attack am I going to do? Your bigger problem is getting in on him, but that comes down to skill at dealing with zoning, which D-Wolf has a lot of regular practice with, and regular skill with, because he plays Alex in Street Fighter V, he has to get in on zoners all the time. It didn't work out this time, but the idea is the same. We're gonna watch for this though, assuming that Cosmic Wolf, Space Wolf, continues to play Rig for this lounge. That's what we're watching for. The slow and probably unavoidable deterioration of effectiveness based purely on, okay, I have learned options and my mind is now starting to lock into relying on those options. Relatively stressful, but not something you can do a lot about.
Giving this all I got. This is your last chance to run away.
This matchup is hard for Sun as part of the entire problem between them. In general, as noted, we all have different things that we do as our default. But because the preference is to learn close quarters combat later and spend a lot more time like forcing the enemy into bad situations by being far away, you see a lot more of this. There's a lot of, I'm going to use my speed to back off and then attack you in a way that you can't necessarily react to. It's not really a problem, it's just something that Snap does as a thing in games. Now, the reason this becomes difficult against Omni Rabbit is because of Honoka's design. She generally is good at poking you back, and once you're in close, she cares less than most other characters. This match, therefore, is basically how good is Omni Rabbit at holding or expecting the correct thing, or sometimes just hitting buttons because a lot of what Ayane actually does to get in can just be hit. In fact, this is difficult for Omni Rabbit for the same reason that many matches are. The instinct to chase down a person who is specifically aiming to make do that. It's like fighting Cammy in Street Fighter V. She sticks to you when she wants to and otherwise can fight from so far away that you don't get to do anything, or so it feels. That, for example, should have gotten held, probably, and then it would have been upsetting, but the understanding that the situation doesn't go that way It's something you probably watched if we work on Street Fighter streams, our last Heart of Battle, etc. Everyone has things they have to work on. But the point of being well practiced is understanding your tendency. Even if you don't like it, getting too frustrated at it does not often lead to much good. And sometimes getting frustrated at anything does not do you much good. So obviously my goal, if I wanted to just win, would be counter everything. Nico has no real reason to walk forward. She doesn't have long enough moves to be deceptive, and I mostly don't care. I have had minor experience with Ayane Bot, and a lot of it was based on this. Ayane Bot is not tested enough to be released or even fully vetted, but we definitely have gotten some stuff. We have to wait until Ayane herself becomes available for free at some point, maybe, for the entire team to get a look. But I think that only happened for a short period, so... What here is the main thing is, I believe I have enough general superiority in close range that I'm not particularly scared of Ayane getting close to Nico. What I should be afraid of is any attempts I make to approach that are probably being baited or understood by my opponent. That, for example, I should probably just have punched. But this is more so about being able to figure out in real time what you care about as a player. I, for example, will probably never hold that low, because that low does not bother me. Even when I actually do a standard attack, it counts as the same thing. If I follow up on a combo, it's likely that my opponent's goal was to make sure that I got held doing that thing. I do have this option, but just winning by doing that is not really my plan here. However, adding it to the repertoire does mean, okay, I don't have to worry about a specific spacing coming up as often, because my opponent doesn't have the option to move to it.
You provided me with some interesting data. Thank you.
Now, I didn't know she had that move either before this round. But I get that feeling sometimes of, I wish I could just like surge all of this energy at you all at once. What is the most likely way that this character would do that? If I hold back, it doesn't really feel like the same sort of surge. That's more of a, I have built up this power and I'm unleashing it slightly. It's normally a sharp thing. I want a big lunge. And I know my forward P doesn't do a lunge, so let's go with the most reasonable thing that the designers should have made this be. And honestly, I don't actually know what the input is. I've been doing half circle forward punch, and that has worked consistently, so there. So I've learned to move. I feel as if this move is a move I should naturally enough have. Because if I didn't feel that, I wouldn't have tried to do it. DoA is one of the best games for that exists, purely because they try to make sure that nearly every move feels comfortable and natural based on the input. Even for more complex characters like Ayane, once you understand that she has a back stance, and that she has a specific type of movement in her speed, which you probably might have understood naturally if you played her. If you picked up Ayane with any understanding of what she was like, and not just her personality, then you have a good chance of knowing, oh yeah, these things are going to be there. If you're coming to this game from Street Fighter, I suggest you play Ayane if you are an Akuma main that likes footsies too much, quote unquote, or a Kami main that likes specials too much. If you like Kami pressure, or Akuma pressure, she's not the character for you. For that, you go play Phase 4. You can also try Mila, is it? I think it's Mila. But she will end up feeling a little bit restricted. So we have an interesting match here because these two players don't have weaknesses that interact with each other in a way that gives either one a specific advantage. Which is a useful type of training to have when you want to do this type of experimentation, when you want to learn things about yourself. It is not helpful if you end up trying to win these matches, because one, you will never be exposed to your own weakness unless your opponent is really focused on it, and two, you generally get away with too many things, so there's no reason to hit different buttons. There's no real reason to consider, oh, maybe I shouldn't hit that. You can see it here. They're just standing close to each other hitting buttons at this point, which makes sense because you can't necessarily get further apart safely. But it's more so that the situation occurred because of the playstyle up until that point. There wasn't a lot of, oh, let me see if I need to play this particular form of neutral. What options do I have for this form of neutral? It's natural to get close together for the most part, and to solve the problem by doing certain things. So they'll be working on that, but you're starting to see the effect already from Cosmic Wolf's side. You're starting to see the, okay, I have this option. I know that it works to stop this from happening. So I'm going to keep doing it. But we do still definitely see the conscious experimentation in specific scenarios. The problem is this isn't the best match to do it, because conscious experimentation in footsies against a player who has the other thing creates a weakness. Meaning, if you want to win this match, or even not just get bodied, the answer would be don't experiment much. Why? Because the opponent you're facing isn't going to let you. Every button you whiff to them is just an opportunity to do a long-range Ayane move. Experimenting at close range doesn't teach you the things you need to know. Fortunately, this is again loser stays on, so it doesn't really matter how Miss Wolf chooses to approach the match. In fact, losing this might be better purely because winning will just put them both to back. You don't have to hold back entirely, but you can do more of your experimentation for the same purpose. Learning this range, for example, is helpful, but I think we've seen the same move multiple times.
On to the next fight.
But they'll be back around. From here though, anything I have to say is probably more tilted toward specifics that don't really require the Nico level of the explanation. We could go deeper into, hey, I tried this button and it did this thing, or I tried this button and it did this thing, but that's only really interesting if you want to play Nico. And since most of the time I'm pressing things without knowing what they are, going deeper into it would actually defeat the purpose of my point.
I'm giving this all I got.
Are you here to take me out?
Believe in your character's style, and if you find yourself constantly surprised, maybe, just maybe it's the wrong character. Also, maybe you misunderstand how to play games like this in general, and your style is currently wrong. I feel it more likely that you picked the wrong character. Even if you liked their personality, you liked the idea of them, you might need to get into a particular mental state before you do it, because maybe you're one of those unfortunate people for whom the designers, their archetypal idea of what a Bayman is, what a Honoka is, doesn't match your concept. And that does happen to some people. It's unfortunate, but the best you can do right now is either learn to change yourself so that the game makes more sense, practice until you get super good if you've got that sort of time, or switch character. Maybe you'll find another one you like playing better, and probably their personality or whatever's not going to be that far off. It's unlikely to be the unfortunate person for whom this happens multiple times within one game. Maybe when a game has too few characters, but this one is relatively high on the list of having enough characters that you probably don't need to overly worry. So look at the things you do like about the character, see who has something similar, and go for it from there. But I'm about to hand this off, so Kanzuki Dynasty will be having her account back. And, of course, be able to show us some Helena things. Possibly follow up on things I'm saying based on Helena things. But I'm not absolutely sure of that because, one, she has spent a lot more time learning specifics of what Helena does. And two, this is not one of her strong points. Helena is a character who also has a lot of complex things she does, and high differences between what she does when she presses certain buttons, more so than other characters. But we'll see what she has to say on it. I may be back on the mic later on to consolidate things, particularly when we've reached a certain point of it. These launches generally don't go for that long though, so we're likely to see a close in 30 to 45 minutes. Though the lounge itself may stay open, the stream is likely to end. I'm pretty sure I will have run out of things to say by then.
I cannot lose this fight.
Another ninja.
all that spirit you had a moment ago.
But yes, it's just as Villian said in certain ways. I am not terribly good at the whole... well, the little layer of steps, really, in terms of thinking about what I want to achieve first, so that I can pick the button that feels right for doing the thing that I want, and then probably, with any luck, it being right, because obviously you're going to lay things out that way. But I also end up mashing a bit the unhelpful way if I'm underconfident or not sure about my input timings for things, which is going to be a lot of the time if you're doing something complex or not quite used to what you can do yet, which is precisely the time you would need it. And that does not always help. Sometimes, though, from the other perspective, I have gaps that I feel like I want to fill. A space in function where I know I want something, but nothing I know of seems to work. And I haven't managed to find out what the actual trick is. So I'm still working on that from time to time with my Helena. Mainly when it becomes a big deal in a particular matchup.
Go home.
However, thinking about this sort of thing also can, if you get frustrated or stuck on something, rather than it sort of just working for you, can help you define what you want out of your character, or how you think about the game and consider whether it is, well, helpful or correct or not. Or how else maybe to achieve what you were considering. In my case, this is one of the gaps that I have often felt in Helena is, or perhaps my ability to play Helena more so, is there are times where I want a quick, forward, probably mid, maybe high, punch type strike, which is not designed to hurt you or even to follow up, but to counter hit you, to intercept whatever it is that you did, or were starting up to do, and just keep you from coming at me or coming into my base. Basically, keep control so that I can continue doing whatever it is that I'm doing. Which is usually at that point, trying to have some control over neutral in one way or the other. And there are obviously times where this sort of thing I should just not even expect it to be possible. Because that's how advantage works. That's how other characters work. But that means that I need to figure out, in those spaces, what exactly it is that I should actually be doing. Maybe there's something where I have that I can get out of the way. Maybe I need to be sidestepping there, although I don't think that has necessarily worked out for me because of the speed or range. But things like this are what I'm therefore able to think about as a result of effectively just getting frustrated that I don't have a button for a particular space. But while I'm working on that, I do tend to have other problems from time to time as well, in terms of getting used to ways my character moves. For probably the same reason Rillian had said before, in that there are a lot of things Helena has that are sort of specific or meant to be used in certain ways with others. I actually had the good fortune to find one today, in terms of how to use my Hokuo stance, the down stance Helena has. Because that might actually, come to think of it, be the thing I was looking for, or something like it, in that in a certain spacing where I haven't tended to use that reaction-wise, simply because I tend to be trying to hold control offensively, I instead noted in my last match that it's a very good evasion tool from that place, especially if I use the backward stance entry. It will slide me back a little bit, and lets me counter hit directly with the throw or possibly other things. And so I've had trouble with how do I come out of that stance offensively other than the throw in the past. But now that I found it in a new location, it may be that the things that didn't really seem to work for me or I didn't understand now will start to make more sense, just because I have the whole thing in the right place. So I'm hoping that this will go relatively well for me. And it will probably go both well and poorly, as these things tend to. Some parts difficult and some parts learning and maybe easy or inspiring, or however you really want to think about that particular feeling. Alright then, well, time to do it again. And scroll through my glorious list of costumes, perhaps.
I cannot lose this fight. This is your last chance to run away.
Get ready. Fight! Get ready. Fight!
What happened to all that spirit you had a moment ago?
I don't hold back when I fight.
Are you here to take me out?
DeWolf, for instance, actually has been working out his physical button configuration to find the one that would suit him best in terms of what buttons are physically where on the controllers, where his kick, where his punch, and all of those go. And according to his reports, he has in fact settled on this now. So we can probably expect some change from him now that he is more comfortable with that and perhaps ready to get properly back into the fighting.
I don't hold back when I fight. On to the next fight.
As mentioned, we basically ran out of things to say, and running out of things to say means usually that the play is over in terms of the parts of it that end up on stream. This lounge is probably going to stay open a while, maybe an hour, maybe not. But the upcoming match will therefore be the last on-stream match of the night. So let's take one more look at Ayane versus Honoka.
chance to run away. I'm giving this all I got.
You can absolutely see the same things playing out here as well. OmniRabbit has a tendency in games to simply ignore opponent attacks, to know the right way to just not have them able to do anything, know what they're going to do, and just go under it, go around it, go through it a lot of the time. Probably why people, hey, Lara players have this move that lets you do that. Because I guess somehow that's what they're expecting from Lara players. Maybe not enough of them, maybe everything was fortunate for OmniRabbit in that no other Lara player needed it and they figured, okay, we'll give that one guy. Probably not in terms of specifically him, but that sort of person, someone thought this was a good idea. And the same thing happens here. It's a lot of, okay, well, one person may need this specific thing that Honoka does, so let's make sure she gets that one. In this case, we refer to that hopping split kick she does. It is another character's move, but why give it to Honoka? It's because it helps the process just described. I think you're going to catch me with a low if I try to come in, but I can just do this and get over that. Or I think you're going for a low when we're close because pressure. It works out pretty well. Either way, we'll talk about this more probably next week when players have had even more time with it, and we might have done some testing on NikoBot because I think she was free at some point and most of us made sure to get her. So it's not too hard to find multiple people with NikoBot to do testing from. Well, with Nico the character to make NikoBot testing. But we still don't know what it will be yet, so keep an eye out for that. But this weekend's release should be HelenaBot finally. We've had some issues with the coordination for certain things. And we know that it's not exactly as if there's a huge rush for it because the only other indication you've had that she was going to be released is stuff mentioned at end of streams, disc guidance, etc. Well, if you watch streams and have that information, now we're giving you the rest of it. But it won't be until this weekend around the usual 7 Eastern or so. So don't expect anything before that. But in terms of playing this game, if you want to join us now, or any Thursday, because we tend to get our Thursday lounges, just search for 2MK Loser Stays, and as long as you are not too far into the Midwest, or into South America, you'll probably make it. You'll probably manage. Depends on your internet connection, of course, and of course during the big quarantine we have issues with the network connection shifting for many people. It's going to get a little rougher, but that is not necessarily going to stop you from being able to play this game. Therefore, for tonight, this has been the end of our SixyTimes content. This has been Rillian, along with Kansuki Dynasty for Team 2MK. Good luck with your training, and join us if you wish to. Good night, everyone.